Good afternoon. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome, after 16 months of online, impersonal meetings of Taftie, those of you that have been able to join us here in Bratislava in person, as well as those who are connected via our streaming session. Today marks our fourth SIEA chairmanship meeting, and we are proud to be able to host it today here in our premises in this building. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously help us to make this event come together to become a success. Namely, Mrs. Jana Heglasova, which is outside, Mr. Michal Mul, here, team of ELU, who supported you transferring from airport, team of MS Agency, which will help you to understand what is Bratislava today evening, and our streaming service company Sebik TV. We wouldn't have done it without you. Thank you. In today's gathering, we would like to focus on a topic that is gaining high rating and importance, not only because of the global race for competitiveness among the entrepreneurs, regions and nations, but also in the light of the global combat against the COVID-19. And these topics are collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation. Well, I don't want to take too much time or too much of your time, but I want to share the warm greetings from our chairman, Mr. Peter Blašković, Chief Executive Officer of our agency, who unfortunately was not able to join us today due to the other tasks. And now, let us welcome Mr. Hamish Taylor, our guest keynote speaker. I will start with his curriculum, just to let you understand who the person is who will be speaking next 20-25 minutes. With a CV that Times described as "take some beating," Hamish Taylor is an award-winning Chief Executive Officer and now an inspirational speaker whose career has taken him from international consumer goods giant Procter & Gamble, consultancy firm Pricewaterhouse, and British Airways to become Chief Executive Officer of the Channel Tunnel Railway Eurostar, and then Chief Executive Officer of Sainsbury Bank, all before he was 40. In all cases, he left behind a record of significant business growth triggered by willingness to challenge the normal way of doing things. So much so that his advice and assistance is now sought by organizations all over the world in many different industries. The Inspired Leaders Network gave him the title Master Thief based on his record of transferring ideas between sectors. Today, Hamish acts as an advisor to some of the world's largest companies and even governments, assisting with specific innovation projects, customer focus, and people leadership. Hamish, the floor is now yours.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Hamish Taylor, and it's my great pleasure to be joining you today to share some of my experiences in creating breakthroughs by promoting cooperation and co-creation. And I'm very grateful to the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency for inviting me across to talk to you today. From my experiences, probably best summed up as trains, planes, and toilet cleaners. Why is that? Well, I'd love to tell you about some of the really exciting businesses I've worked in, like this brand that I ran in the 90s, or this one that I was chief executive of later on. But to be honest with you, that's not where my journey in innovation through collaboration and co-creation started. It started here in the wonderful world of household cleaners, because I started off my career in Procter & Gamble. Great place to start your career. Not great for describing at dinner parties what you do for a living, so it's probably time to move on from toilet cleaning at some point. I spent a few years in consultancy with Pricewaterhouse, and then kind of landed on my feet a bit and ended up as head of brands at British Airways, where I got to do some really exciting innovations like putting beds into aeroplanes in the mid-1990s. From there, I moved into chief executive roles. My first one was with Eurostar, attempting to get the French, the English, and the Belgians to work together in perfect harmony, running high-speed trains through the Channel Tunnel, which actually was not as difficult as you might think, because I'm not English, I'm not French, and I'm not Belgian. I'm actually Scottish, so I could be a neutral in the middle of all of that. And then I ran a bank, Sainsbury's Bank, the world's first supermarket bank, and I was chief executive there. But for the last 10 or 15 years or so, I've been working around the world with organizations, be they major companies, be they universities, and often even governments, around this whole area of driving innovation, customer centricity. And the key theme in driving innovation and customer centricity right through my career has always been cooperation and co-creation, your topics for today. Why is that? Well, Procter & Gamble invented brand management, the idea of multidisciplinary teams instead of working in silos through the organization. At British Airways, when I went there, they were very much in different parts of the world, in different functions that didn't talk to each other. No wonder we struggled with innovation. Eurostar, it was 3 different country companies, the Belgian company, the French company, the English company. They needed to come together. And Sainsbury's Bank, I was attempting to get a supermarket chain to work together with a bank. So if the common theme was cooperation and co-creation in order to drive innovation, what were the challenges? And I'm going to share with you today 3 challenges that I took on board in trying to move things forward. The first one was this. When I went into a new organization, the first thing I had to do was change the goal. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. Secondly, it was about changing where you look for collaboration. And thirdly, it was about changing the way you actually engage with others. So in a kind of left to right process, it was about change the goal and use that as a way of expanding by changing where you look and changing how you engage with others. So let's take those in turn and let me explain what I learned, often by getting it wrong, as you'll find out. Changing the goal. Procter & Gamble, very clear, very beginning of my career, the customer does not care about your product or service. What they care about is what it does for them. Therefore, every brand in consumer goods should be built on a statement of customer benefit and use that as your platform moving forward. So in Procter & Gamble, for example, each of the brands talks about what you get as a result of the brand. It doesn't tell you how good the product is. So if you're selling Clearasil on the right-hand side there, which is a skin treatment for teenagers, what are they selling? Confidence. Use our product because of the confidence you will get because we've made your skin better. But it doesn't talk about the product. I'll show you how that worked at British Airways and why it stimulated innovation through collaboration. At British Airways, it used to be about the product. We would talk about our seat. We would talk about our catering. But it's about us. We went around the world telling everyone we had the widest seat in the air. And then Singapore Airlines launched one wider than ours. We're stuffed. So instead, we said, let's learn the lesson from consumer goods. What if we drive it around a statement of customer benefit? When do you notice a great business class flight overnight? You notice it when you get to your destination in the morning. So the whole proposition changed to, we're going to be better than any other airline at helping customers arrive ready for business. It's not about our seats, it's not about our catering, it's about helping you arrive ready for business. We know that that will show up for you if you get more sleep or less hassle or refreshment. 9 words, complete turnaround from where we were before. We're not talking about our product, we're talking about the customer and the customer benefit. Those 9 words enabled British Airways to totally dominate transatlantic business class travel during the 1990s. I know they've lost it now, but in the 90s, they were dominant. Why? First of all, because there's only 9 words. Ruthless simplicity. Really keep it simple so everybody can understand it, just 9 words. On the customer side, of course, they start listening to you because I'm now talking about you arriving ready for business rather than talking about what I do. But it acts as a great stimulus for innovation because you're now asking yourselves a different question. Instead of saying, here's what we do today, how could we make it better? You're now saying, how else could we help people arrive ready for business? And it asks a different question. So lots of innovation started to come through, like, I don't know, like arrivals lounges, the idea of a lounge in the morning after your flight, so that you can have your breakfast and get showered and get changed for the day ahead. But the key to getting there was also what happened in terms of internal collaboration with the employees in the business. And the first thing is you've now provided a ruthlessly simple focus for everybody's work. Everybody's now pointing in the same direction. We don't have different goals in each different department. We have one, which is how do you help customers arrive ready for business? So I went to the IT people. I said, can you help? They looked at it. They looked at less hassle. They thought about the airport process. 9 months later, we're the first international airline to remove check-in. It was a card you put in a machine. Now it's on your mobile phones everywhere. But the point is, we're all now working to the same goal, and they're thinking, how do I contribute to that same goal? But it also means ideas come from everywhere. One of the best ideas came from two little old ladies that used to work behind the desk at New York JFK Airport. They would greet you when you arrived in the lounge in the morning. And they came along and they said, Hamish, we've had an idea. I said, great, what is it? They said, you know that thing you showed us last week about more sleep? Well, people come to the lounge, they spend maybe 1 or 2 hours in the lounge, then they get on their flight and they fly back to London. Why don't we serve them their dinner while they are already in the lounge? Because if we do that, they've already eaten, so they've got more time to sleep when they're on board the aircraft. How obvious is that? Yet no airline was offering it. We offered it, 80% of passengers said, yes, please. Now, what had happened is, by painting the ruthlessly simple statement of what we're trying to achieve, everybody could think about it and what it might mean for them. And therefore, the collaboration, the whole organization is now working as one organization rather than in separate silos, because you've got a single point that you're looking for. And how you create that single point depends on, obviously, how much insight you've got and how well you've understood the customers or the people you want to collaborate with. So, for example, at Sainsbury's Bank, the insight was about, we know who Sainsbury's shoppers are and we know what their finance product needs are. And as a result, they created a bank inside the supermarket with leaflet racks, and eventually they moved to chairs and tables. And nobody used it because you hadn't really understood the customer's experience. The customer insight that turned Sainsbury's Bank around was understanding, what mood are people in when they walk into Sainsbury's? Think about it. When you go to do your grocery shopping at your local supermarket, are you in a good mood? Most people say no. Most people say, what do I want to do? Get in and get out. I know what I want to buy. I put it in my trolley and I go. You're not going to come and sit down and spend 10 minutes talking about a credit card offer while the ice cream's melting and the children are running up the aisle. It's just not going to happen, is it? So what we needed to do was create a really simple, really easy to understand range of products. Simple travel insurance. Family of 4, 2 weeks in Europe, it's that one. Put it in the trolley and go. Pet insurance was a huge one. Pet insurance, put it beside the dog food. Pet, private healthcare for your animal, it's great. Actually, I had ran into a problem with that a while back. I spent a week in Malta doing some business, and my son's pet rabbit cost me 200 British pounds in veterinary bills while I was in Malta for the week. At that point, I understood why, sensible people have pet insurance. I also now understand why they eat rabbits in Malta. But anyway, that's another story. Look, the point is customer insight, understanding the other person's point of view. Not what do you want from collaboration, not why do you want them to involve, but what are they trying to do, enables you to create a statement and a platform that makes them want to get involved more than they would have done otherwise. At Eurostar, we tried telling everybody why our trains were fantastic. They were better than the aeroplane. They were better than the ship, and we failed. When you really understood the customer, you understood that actually the decision was not, shall we go with the train or another form of transport like the aeroplane or maybe a boat? The choice was, how else could I spend £100 this weekend? This is a leisure purchase. You don't have to go to Paris or Brussels or London. You could go out for dinner or buy something nice for the house. The decision set was different. So what does that say? It says if we want to get those people into our trains, we've got to get them excited about the idea of a trip to Paris, not just we're a great train service. The whole stance changes, and that's how you encourage people to join in. So what you're doing, in a sense, is changing the platform away from what you do, we're an airline or we're selling railway tickets, into what the customer will get. Arrive ready for business, Paris. And I've seen it in lots of places where you change away from what you do. So I'm not trying to say, I work with a bank that we're working with SMEs like you guys do quite often. And what you've got to understand about an SME is they're not interested in their bank. They're interested in their ambition to be a multimillionaire, to have a nice life till I retire, to whatever it's going to be. So you've got to go in and convince them that you're an ambition manager. They're more likely to achieve their ambition by working with you than with somebody else. So the changing the whole way you talk to people that you want to collaborate with or to work with or to sell to in this particular case. And that's the challenge. Innovation is not about new technology. It's about what you get as a result of that new technology or processes or whatever it is. And that's what the other collaborators are going to be interested in. We've got to show them how our new technology then goes that direction. So it's almost like changing your business card. Stop thinking in terms of research and development and technology. Think about the benefit as a result of that. And that's the way you sell it to other people to get them involved. And they might get involved because of its great product benefits for something that the technology or the product itself brings to them. It might be because of the experience of working with you. Like, for example, Starbucks built a great business on having Wi-Fi access and comfy seats. Apple made their computers easier to use. Apple didn't sell computers because of the number of gigabytes of processing speed. It's because they were easier to use. At the real top of the chain, go for feelings. How do you want your customer to feel as a result of collaborating with you or cooperating with you? And that's where something like Disney is great. If you go to Disney, everything in their world is about magical surprises. Let's play. So where does that leave us in terms of what you guys are trying to do? Well, look, I know you want to encourage SMEs to take part in projects with you and assist companies in participation. And my view is we've got to therefore think about, it's not about the technology or the research or the skills we're going to bring. It's about what's in it for them. Cooperation for the sake of what? And that's about the benefit. It's about understanding their business, what they're trying to achieve, and selling them something that's about them, not something about what we want to achieve. So that's challenge number one, okay? Let's change the platform of what we're trying to sell when we're trying to get people to cooperate. Number two was to change where you look for collaboration. By defining the challenge slightly differently, you can open the door to lots of other people you could collaborate with. So for example, when you're thinking about turning an aircraft seat into a bed, as I had to do at British Airways, it's easy to fall into a trap of thinking, therefore we need to collaborate and co-create with airline seat manufacturers. When you do that, you actually narrow down the options because they're too much expertise. They tell you why it can't be done. Safety struts, wiring, impact resistance. So instead, we went to a company that designed boats, luxury boats, because we define the problem now as this is about luxury in a small space. Well, that's not just about airlines. That could be about anyone. We went to the yacht manufacturer, and they were the ones who said, great, luxury in a small space. We can show you some ideas there. We co-created with them the first beds in aeroplanes. We beat every other airline by nearly 2 years on this. Why? Because we worked with somebody that was already doing it, but in another industry or another place. And it's a very easy thing to do this. You know, I wanted to sort the queuing at Heathrow Airport, couldn't do it, we were failing. Who could help us? Who could we work with that's already doing it? Okay, not in an airport, but where else? Disney. I'd been to Florida. I'd seen what Disney do in their parks. It seemed pretty smart. People like going to Disney parks. They don't like going to Heathrow Airport. So maybe Disney can teach us something. And they did. And it was simple stuff they taught us as well. Simple things like, why do you have a queue at each individual check-in desk? I mean, do you remember when airports used to be like that? Each desk would have its own check-in and you always join the wrong one, don't you? There's always a family of 13 going to Outer Mongolia right in front of you, you know. So they introduced us to the zigzag queue. One queue, you zigzag up and down. When you get to the front, go to the first available desk. It's obvious now, it's everywhere. Coffee shops, supermarkets, banks. But it wasn't in airports. Disney showed us how to do it. They said other things as well, like make it really narrow, so it's only one person wide. We said in our typical British fashion, is that to stop those foreigners from walking to the front when they should be joining the queue like we British people do? And they said, no. It moves faster. If you make it wide, it moves very slowly because it's 3 people across. If you make it narrow and one person, it keeps moving. So you're still in it for the same amount of time, but in your head, we're making progress. The other thing they said was, if it's going to be a 25-minute wait from here, tell everybody it's going to be 30 minutes. Then when they get to the front, they're so happy because they've beaten the expectation, they've beaten the system. So simple stuff you learn by just cooperating with people that have maybe got the same problem, but you didn't think of talking to them because they're in a different industry or a different environment. Actually, maybe they do have the same problem. And there's loads of places you can go to. I worked and collaborated with all of these people because they always had something they could offer me, something that they could show me that would help me understand what the opportunities were. You want to improve speed and efficiency? Go and speak with the Coast Guard, the lifeboat people. because they want to get a boat into the water quickly to rescue somebody. So they teach you that it's not about process re-engineering, it's about how you talk to each other, how you spot the signals to get started, etc. The culture you build. There's lots of places you can go to learn lots of things around the problems that we're challenged with. So if the first challenge is to change the platform, create a goal for our innovation and a goal for our cooperation and co-creation that's based on the benefit to the other party is number one. Number two, as I said, is to then broaden the definition of the challenge, which allows you to look to new places to get cooperation and get the breakthroughs that you maybe weren't getting before. And then number three is to change how you engage with others. And there's a couple of aspects to that. The first one is this: sometimes it's your own organization that stops the cooperation. At Eurostar, we were 3 separate national companies. How on earth are you going to create something great when you're 3 separate, duplicating everything? So I had to create a thing called Eurostar Group that brought the 3 together as one organization. As I mentioned earlier, at Sainsbury's Bank, I was trying to get a supermarket chain to work together with a bank. It's not going to work while they are separate institutions. You need to create one organization, yes, with representatives from both, that will actually work together for a single point and a single goal. Even within an organization, within British Airways, we were organized according to ourselves. You had long haul and short haul. Long haul, big aeroplanes going a long way. Short haul, little aeroplanes going a short distance. But if I'm a business traveler, one day I'm in long haul because I'm going to Singapore, but another day I might be in short haul because I'm just going to Frankfurt or Brussels. 2 completely different bits of the organization dealing with the same customer. So I had to reorganize so we were organized around customer groups, premium brands, Concorde and First Class, business, Club World, Club Europe, Shuttle, and leisure. So your own organization sometimes can get in the way of collaboration and cooperation. The other thing that stimulates the idea of looking to new places for help is ambition. How you set the ambition has a huge impact on how people think. So for example, at British Airways, we didn't say to the IT people, could you make the check-in process a bit better? We said, how could you get rid of check-in? And when you set a goal like that, people realize immediately, this is going to require extra special effort. This is going to be a bigger task than I thought. This is going to require help. Do I know how to do it myself? As long as they think it's just what we did before, but a little bit different, you don't stimulate that kind of ambition and that kind of thinking. And the last model on this one is this one that said, one of the things we learned at British Airways was it's all very well to get people excited about getting involved in a project, joining us to go for this goal. But unless you make it easy for them, unless you help them with the first steps, it's not going to happen. I learned this the hard way at British Airways. We were trying to get cabin crew to go out and interact more with customers. They weren't doing it. So I was on a long haul flight one day. I walked up to the front. I said to the cabin crew, "Oh, it's a shame that we're not collaborating more. We're not interacting more with customers." The cabin service director said to me, he said, "Stand there." I said, "Sorry." He said, "I want you to stand right there in front of this curtain." So I stood where he had told me. What he did was he got in front of me and he opened the curtain very quickly. I looked up. Now what can I see? I can now see 50 business class passengers all facing this direction. They've heard the noise of the curtain going up. So they look up at me to see what's going on. And we look at each other. And what felt like about, 10 minutes to me, but was probably only a few seconds, there's a voice over there from the galley, from the cabin service director saying, "Go on then, interact." Well, I did. I interacted with the curtain and shut it again pretty quickly. But he'd made his point. And the point was this. It's all very well to know what you're supposed to do. It's all very well to get people excited about the opportunity. But you've got to give them the tools to help them to do it. If you don't make it easy for them to do it, they won't do it. So, for example, the best example I can give you is cabin baggage. Okay, one of the big problems in an airline is people carry too many bags. The job of the check-in staff is to take that bag away from you and check it into the hold. But it's really tough because people come along with bags that are too big. They know their bags are too big. They're determined they're going to get them on board. So what was the make it easy bit that we brought in? The boxes that you see at airports. Madam, I would love you to take that bag on board. Nothing would give me greater pleasure, but unfortunately there is a maximum size. So I'll tell you what, if your bag fits in this box, you're very welcome to take it on board. If it doesn't fit in this box, I'm sorry, we'll have to check it and put it in the hole. So please blame the box, not me. It's not my fault, it's the box, okay? It gave them a tool. It made it easy for them to manage the situation. That didn't stop people, of course, taking a bag and trying to force it into the box. If you ever see anybody doing that at an airport, stay and watch. It's worth it for the sport, because once that bag has gone into the box, it is not coming out in a hurry, I promise you. They get stuck in there quite easily. I'm convinced one day I'll see somebody walking onto the aeroplane carrying their bag with the box still attached. Look, I proved to them it would fit. Oh, that's clever. So look, I've come to the end of my 20 minutes. In fact, I've run to 22, but I was told that was okay. 3 thoughts around it. Creating breakthroughs is all about cooperation and co-creation if you really want breakthroughs, right the way through my career, as I say, from Procter & Gamble right the way through to Sainsbury's Bank and the work I do now with organizations. But the 3 key themes around that really prompted it were, number 1, the ability to change the goal. This idea of it's about customer benefit. It's ruthlessly simple. Yes, if you can get it up to how you want your customers to feel, it opens up new ideas. But unless they can see what's in it for them, the benefit to them, they will not cooperate. So it's got to be about the benefit to the other party, not about what great skills you can bring or what great expertise you can bring. I don't care. What I want to know is how are you going to help me achieve what I need to achieve. So you've got to change your business card. See the goal as being about them, not about you. The second challenge was to define the problem in such a way that you can look for new places to collaborate, look for new pockets of expertise. Be the master thief, as I was called in the press recently. Okay, be the person that steals ideas from Disney, or in my case, yacht designers or whatever. But looking broader can help with it. And then the third one is this business about engagement. And I've just picked on a couple of themes in the limited time we had. Sometimes it's the organization. Check that the organization isn't getting in the way of what it is you're trying to do to collaborate. How you set the ambition opens people's minds. If they see a step change, they're more likely to cooperate and co-create than if they think it's just incremental change. And thirdly, if you really want them to work with you, make it easy for them to do so. Because if you don't make it easy for them to do so, it can be the greatest idea in the world, but they're not going to do it. So that's my 4penn'orth in terms of my thoughts around the challenges. I wish you the very, very best of luck with it. And I just think it's a great, exciting thing to see people starting to work together. And I really hope you enjoy your conference. And I hope you realize, hopefully there's 1 or 2 things from what I've told you that may just spark a little bit of thinking. But for the moment, thank you very much indeed. And goodbye for now. Now, I have been issued with 1 or 2 questions as a result of the conversations that I've had prior to this. So let me share them with you and let's see how I'd answer them. The first question was talking about the importance of cooperation and collaboration. And yes, you can see how it works at British Airways, but what about small and medium enterprises? What should they do to get as much as possible from cooperation and collaboration with people like yourselves or with academia or other market players, because they're so caught up in their day-to-day journey? I think that goes back to what I said about customer promises for me. The whole point is they've got to see the benefit to them. They're not going to do it because we say we've got a great piece of technology or we've got great expertise. They're only going to do it if they see it as a way of either taking away workload from them that's getting in the way of what they really want to do, or alternatively really hits the nail on the head for what they're trying to do. So for example, the SMEs I worked with the bank, unless you talked about their ambition, listened to them, understood what they were trying to achieve, you would never persuade them to work with you. And the conversation had to be then about their ambition and what they're trying to get. So I think the key thing is, the operation is something that small businesses do take up an inordinate amount of time. It's something that gets away in the business. If we can show them the benefit of freeing themselves up from that, to spend time actually what they want to do in getting new customers in, building the revenue stream, they'll listen to us. Or secondly, if we can show them why what we're doing helps them achieve whatever their ambition is, that's when they'll also join in and do it. So it's been about benefit to them. Second question. Hamish, we fully understand that our future world is much interlinked, where innovation agencies could focus better with SMEs. Is it pushing them into cooperation with academia, or should we let them act and find the way forward without guidance? I think it's halfway in between, to be honest, guys. Look, as I said on the previous question, it's partly about how you set the benefit. They've got to see the benefit to them of cooperating, right? What's in it for them? So the messages have to be about them. But the way I like to think about it, I don't think you can ever push anybody into anything, but you can put yourself on the shelf. When I was at Procter & Gamble, okay, we didn't sell anybody anything. We put it on a supermarket shelf. And if we'd got the messaging right, then people would choose to take it. Oh, I've heard about that one. That's the best one. I'll buy that one. Okay, and I think there's an important thing to remember here. You are a brand. You're trying to, whether your brand is academia or technical research or whatever it is, you're a brand that's trying to sell yourself to, say, an SME to buy cooperation creation with you, okay? Brands are made up of two things. They're made up of, number one, a great product or service, which you guys have clearly got. But number two, it's about communication. It's about the messaging and the communication that you put out there, okay? That's as important. Procter & Gamble not only created superior products, they were also the world's biggest advertising spender because they know you need both. So it's not good enough to be great at the technical side or have great portfolio of academics or whatever. The messaging's got to be out there. And you need to spend as much time on that as you do on the product. And when you do that messaging, it gets back to my previous answer, which is messaging has got to be about the benefit to them, not what you do. So that would be my thoughts on those ones. And I think that's about it, I'm afraid. I think we've probably run out of time here. So just to say, as I said before, best of luck with it. I'll look forward to seeing how you progress. And thank you very much once again to the Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency for inviting me to take part. And I hopefully will see you again someday. But for the moment, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Hamish. I very much liked one word in his speech, which was ambition. And honestly speaking, we had very huge ambition when we started our chairmanship for 2021. And we believe that we can really be successful in this task. From my point of view, I think we are reaching our expectation, but unfortunately, it's not as as personal as it should be because of different things, but it doesn't matter. The chairmanship allows us to meet some of the brilliant minds of the country and Europe within our panel discussion. And today, our panel discussion is combined with really very wide range of people. And I will shortly introduce our panelists. So I am extremely delighted to pronounce the first panelist, Mr. Peter Saga. I hope I pronounce your family name, Peter, well. Perfect. A representative of DG Growth of European Commission. Peter is a policy officer in the Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, which is probably the longest name of the Directorate in European Commission, I suppose. Since 2019, he is member of the cluster team of the DG Growth, working on various policy initiatives that support the development and collaboration between European clusters. He is the coordinator of the European Expert Cluster European Expert Group on Clusters. He joined the European Commission in 2005, and before DG Growth, he worked on international trade and later on in environmental policies. He is an economist by training. I will introduce other two distinguished panelists, and then each of panelists will have some time to start his presentation with the forward. Either you have 15 minutes, other panelists have 10 minutes. So other panelists are, I also welcome Mrs. Bianca Muntean. Bianca is the manager of Transylvania IT Cluster, gold labeled by ESCA, with over 20 years of experience in ecosystem development, I suppose innovation ecosystem development. Yeah. She is a member of the European Cluster Expert Group, similar as Peter is managing it. Bianca is member, I am as well member. A group coordinated by DG Growth on behalf of the European Commission, and also actively participates in various advisory boards focused on digital transformation at local, regional, and national level. In 2019, she was awarded the title of EU Cluster Manager of the Year, and her work is focused on supporting cross-sectoral collaboration in Europe. Bianca is also the recipient of the Open Innovation Award in 2017, given by the European Commission and the Open Innovation Strategy and Policy Group. As manager of Transylvania IT Cluster, he founded and coordinates Transylvania Digital Innovation Hub. And finally, I also welcome Mr. Peter Colessa. Peter Colessa is a partner at Civitas Slovakia, an R&D advisory and innovation hub helping startups and corporates in Central and Eastern Europe innovate and grow. He previously served as a Slovak Trade and Innovation Counselor at the Slovak embassies in Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C. Peter holds master's degrees from the Central European University in Budapest and from Masaryk University in Brno. And he was a scholar at the Bard College, New York. Peter has been a board member at the American Chamber of Commerce in Slovakia since 2017. Together with my charming colleague, Mrs. Miriam Hučková, we will be guiding all the speakers who have joined us today. But I would like to introduce her as well, because probably a lot of people knows me, but I don't think you know Miriam. Miriam is Executive Director of Košice IT Valley, which is currently the only gold-labeled certified cluster in Slovakia, similar to your, Bianca, and was the first of its kind in Central and Eastern Europe. In the past, she was a senior analyst at the Ministry of Economy of the Slovak Republic for over 3 years. She was making policies for increasing innovative performance of Slovakia, smart city concept, and international collaboration. Miriam gained a master's degree in law from University of Pavle Šafárik in Košice. So now we already have all speakers introduced, and now I will give floor to Peter. Peter, please, floor is yours.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon to everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Artur, that you invited me for this session. I was very delighted to join because we've been working so well together in the Cluster Expert Group, and I'm also happy to see Bianca and also the two other panelists. It's a pity that I'm in Brussels, and it would be nice to be with you in Bratislava, but still, I trust that through this online way, I will be able to put forward my points, and we can have nevertheless a lively and interesting discussion. So as Artur said, I work in clusters. So I will be focusing my little introductory speech on clusters, trying to explain a little bit how they are contributing to innovation ecosystems, what their role, what their usefulness is, and what the European Commission is doing to help them to be successful and help them to play an active role in this sense. But before I move to clusters, maybe just a little bit of a helicopter view above what the European Commission is doing to support innovation. I mean, we do a lot. I'm sure you know many of these things. First of all, funding, which is on the mind of everybody. We have Horizon Europe. I'm sure you're all very familiar. Maybe you applied. You've been following this program. Now we have the Next Generation EU, which is a financial package to respond to the COVID crisis. But it also has a lot of aspects on innovation, especially green and digital transition, because we believe that long-term progress in this area is important for the recovery. Of course, we also work on skill and education, which are also crucial for innovation. The most recent initiatives are the European Skills Agenda and also the European Pact for Skills, where we are trying to bring together European companies, but also agencies, universities, to work together on reskilling, upskilling, the necessary skill management that is needed for a large extent, for a digital and a green transition. We are doing, of course, regulations, and I believe that regulations are also important for a good innovative progress, not just IPR, but also sectoral regulations, standards, and so on and so forth. And a lot of these things are coming from Brussels. But then there's the final area, which is facilitating cooperation and collaboration. And I understand this is the one that your session is focusing on. So, and here we come to the role of clusters, and I will move to clusters in a minute. But before that, just to mention that clusters are one of the vehicles, one of the methods how we are promoting collaboration and cooperation for innovation. Beyond that, we have a number of other instruments. So I just mentioned those. We have the EU industrial alliances. We have 6 at that moment: the Battery Alliance, the Plastic Alliance, the Raw Materials Alliance, which are bringing together all the actors from an ecosystem to try to solve these big issues, like batteries, developing good batteries, solving the plastic issues, and they proved to be very positive and very successful ways of creating collaboration on the European level for innovation. Then we have missions under the Horizon 2020, which is a bit about funding, but also about collaboration. We have public-private partnerships, again, funding and collaborations. And we also have this new ecosystem approach. There are the 15 ecosystems. So we try to understand companies and actors, not as individuals, not as solitary actors, but as part of an ecosystem, because it's important that they work together. So clusters, here I get to clusters, which we believe are very useful vehicles for cooperation. Clusters, what is their definition? We say that clusters are entities, are dynamic geographic concentrations of interconnected firms. Some of them are big, but many of them are SMEs, are small and medium-sized enterprises. And there are also related innovation actors, such as research organizations, universities, technology centers, accelerators, incubators. So they work in a particular area. They have a long-term cooperation. So then they don't just come together for one project, but they are sitting there next to each other and they've been collaborating for a long term. So they have this trust, they have this confidence that they built in each other. And we believe that this is really a precondition for good collaboration, and good collaboration will bring innovation. So clusters, they take different shape and forms, but we have around 3,000 clusters in Europe, and they're responsible for 19% of all European jobs. We have very solid evidence that those companies that are participating in clusters, they perform better than those that are without clusters. You know, they have a higher average wage, they have higher average growth, they have more rapidly growing startups, and they are more innovative. We have very clear statistical evidence to prove that. So clusters are boosting collaboration. They are connecting these enterprises. And I think it's obvious why it is important for innovation. You know, for innovation, you need different actors. You need firms, you need researchers, you need agencies, you need innovating agencies, you need digital innovation hubs, and all these things are brought together and made to function really seriously and long term in a clusters. Now, in the Commission, so our objective is to make clusters develop, to grow, and also to collaborate especially between different European regions and different European countries. We have a number of tools that we are using for this. I just mention a number of them without going much detail into describing them. First, we have what we call the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, which is a web-based platform. This is like a one-stop shop for European clusters. We have around 1,300 clusters registered. So anybody can access this database and look for partners. You know, you get the profiles of different clusters and you look for somebody in IT from Finland or climate change or circular economy, and you can find your right partners. And the collaboration platform is also informing about events, about programs, about opportunities for grant, for funding. So all the information relevant that is there. We have a number of partnerships. So we are calling European clusters to form partnerships from European countries on a specific topic, and then work together for a few years to develop a product or to develop a collaboration system. We have such partnerships for international cooperation, for smart specialization, and also Horizon Europe for innovation, which is the so-called InnoSoup one. Also, we have programs for cluster exchange, and we also have a cluster excellence program that is helping with capacity building cluster managers and cluster organizations. So these are our main vehicles. You can find a lot on them, more details on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, where there are detailed description about them. One more thing that I would like to recommend for your attention, if you want to learn more about clusters and the supports that clusters can receive, is the work of the European Expert Group on Clusters that Arthur mentioned, and Bianca is also a member there. So last year, this expert group has developed 15 recommendations for cluster policy. So we asked what should policymakers and what should cluster managers do in order to help clusters to become drivers and part of the digital transition, of the green transition, and also of strengthening resilience in Europe. And we came up with 15 recommendations, and it appeared in a report that you can read on the collaboration website. Many of them are directly related to innovation, like clusters to be part of industrial alliances, of public and private partnerships, to directly collaborate with digital innovation hubs, to drive policies that are being developed by local government, by national government, by the European Commission, to help to revive supply chains, to be part of skills management and skills development actions. So there are 15 of these. And right now we are collecting good practices, best practices from all over Europe, kind of practices that could be inspiration for anybody, for any clusters or any policymakers in Europe when they want to develop such programs to support clusters. And all these good practices, they will appear in a cluster policy toolkit that should be operational by the end of the year. It will be an online web-based toolkit where anybody can go and search for good practices according to sector, according to policy type, according to subject area, like skills, like innovation, and they would get good ideas, descriptions on what Europe is doing, because there's a lot of good practices out there, and we would like you to learn from it, because our conviction is that doing innovations through clusters, because they can deliver collaboration so effectively, so well, is a very effective, a very efficient way of doing that. So that's all as a kind of an introduction from my side.
I like very much your words about vehicle for innovation, and the clusters are vehicle. And I like very much your description of the cluster capabilities, because it seems that clusters are a substance of R&D and innovation, because they are working on the principle of triple helix. There are entrepreneurs, there are public authorities or state authorities as members, and there is academia. So, and this is, if cluster is not working properly, then it doesn't make sense to be a cluster. And then, if it's working properly, the innovation should come by natural development. But I don't want to speak about that, because there is another panelist waiting for introductory 10 minutes speech. If you want, please, Bianca.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. It's one of my first business delegations after the COVID crisis. So for me, I'm very lucky to be here with you in person. I use this occasion to also say hello to Peter. It's great to see you again, and I'm looking forward to restart our work next week.
Next week, yeah.
Yes, we already have the meeting. So I will start by saying a few words about what we are doing as a cluster, Transylvania IT cluster, in Northwestern region in Romania. And actually, I'm very honored to be here. I read a lot about Taftie and your activities. And I must say that in Romania, we do not have an innovation agency. I think it's among, I believe it's the only member state which doesn't have an innovation agency. And I know that because we were discussing with the stakeholders from the Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization. And we created this national strategy for supporting startups and innovation. And the first action point is actually the necessity to create an innovation agency in Romania also. And this is very much supported by the government and also by the stakeholders from all over the country taking part in the consultation. Romania is a big country. Regarding the charts in terms of innovation and digitalization, we are on the last places. What we are trying to do as clusters regionally is to support, to become that vehicle Peter was mentioning in his speech. But I must say that it's a very, very challenging role we did take. My cluster was established 8 years ago without a national public policy for supporting cluster development. We only had one call for creation and supporting clusters. So the ones which we are currently up and running, most of us, we were created back then on the occasion of that call, but without any substantial support coming from the government, from the state. Only, I don't know, a quarter of these clusters created back then are still existing. The ones which succeeded to find their own way to support their activities, because this cluster, I need to say that they need to have capacities in order to run all the activities they are currently running. In terms of putting together these actors, Arthur was also mentioning academia, public sector, also the companies, and also to find common objectives and to support their collaboration. I must tell you, it's not an easy task to do. And in the same time, focusing also on how to exist, how to run its activities. And in our case, for example, my team numbers 18 people. We have a core of senior people with more than 5 years of experience in working within the clusters. And you also must know that these cluster teams or people working in clusters, they have to be very versatile to know to speak on the language of the entrepreneurs, which are very pragmatic and which are looking for concrete actions and concrete projects and concrete initiatives. They are looking at KPIs. So it's not enough for them to hold only meetings and different public events. We have also to create different type of opportunities. We also have to speak the language of academia and to make them understand what the companies would like to see from their part, and to try to create collaboration opportunities in research project, in technology transfer project, in running innovation experiments together with the companies. So we also have to have also this skill within our teams. And not least, we have to speak the language of the policymakers and the language of the public sector, which is part of our clusters. And at one hand, they are looking for political outcome, for votes, for a lot of image, while the companies are looking to them, waiting for concrete things to happen. So briefly, these are the layers we are working at currently. And also in our case, we are doing a lot of European international work, linking with similar clusters all over the Europe, working also with the European Commission, with the European Parliament, with the Committee of the Regions, trying to grasp all these opportunities, to bring also evidences from the market in order to give to the policymakers a real feeling of what's actually happening in the real world, in the real economy. So this is not easy. It's very challenging. We are not bored any day, any time. And we are also looking, besides creating these collaboration opportunities and this project and financing for our members, also we are looking to ways in which to support our activities, because to have good people, good experts within our team, it's not very easy to keep them. We have to motivate them. We have to create different opportunities for their professional development, and also to find a financing way to do so. And I was telling you that Romania doesn't have a cluster support policy, but we are saying about us that we were like a real startup because we had to reinvent and to come with different solutions. And also our portfolio of services developed during time, depending on the expertise we could access at certain moment. And currently we are running different projects at local, regional, national and European level. Horizon project, research, development and innovation project, also structural funding projects, also projects supported by the local administration. And we are trying to identify and to put at the same table these actors of the innovation ecosystem and to try to find solution to local, regional, national challenges we are having. And what happened in our case is that if we are quite far away located from the capital, Romania, it's quite a centralized state. You cannot do anything at the national level without going through Bucharest. But we had some time in which we decided to go directly to Brussels to speak there with the people who believed in us, in what we were doing, because at the national government we were knocking on the closed doors. I'm very happy that during past 5 years, I might say, these things are changing now at every level, at the government level, at the regional level, and also at the local level. The clusters are considered to be pools of expertise, of experts. We are currently drafting the national strategy for digital innovation hubs in Romania, for example. And we were very happy to work with DG Grow and to have our input in how this new structure, which will be supported through Digital Europe program starting 2021, have to use the expertise and the capacity already existing in clusters, because there will be a lot of financing given to the digital transformation project, twin transition, and clusters must be used because they have a huge expertise in this. Actually, we are the orchestrators of Transylvania Digital Innovation Hub in Romania. So nowadays, I must say that we are being heard at every level. We are working with the Ministry of Economy. We are working with the National Authority for Romania Digitalization. And we do not believe that we know everything or anything, but we are working with clusters from other fields of activity in our region. These are equal members in our Digital Innovation Hub, for example, as adopters of technology. And also we are supporting the emergence of new digital innovation hubs and new clusters in Romania. And we are very open and keen to collaborate at the European level.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bianca, thank you very much for these words. It's very encouraging to see that, well, there are people which are not given up after 15 and 20 years of working, are still able to achieve something with the national government. So congratulations. Honestly speaking, we are not far away from this situation in Slovakia. We are also knocking on the sometimes very tough, strongly closed doors. But okay, we are somehow, in some cases we are managing it, some cases not. But this panel looks until now as a very cluster focused, but definitely, as I said, cluster is the essence of the innovation and research, and by collaboration with very different stakeholders. And that cluster, the panel is not about clusters only. The next panelist, Peter, because he is from the totally different innovation ecosystem, part of innovation ecosystem. So Peter, floor is now yours, and you can just express your opinion on these things.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you for the invitation. I just want to first applaud Bianca and the work that the cluster, but also other ecosystem actors have been playing in Transylvania, in Cluj, and it has become a well-known region, I would say, for innovators, for startups around Europe. So well done. The community is very active and vibrant. So I represent an innovation advisory called Civita. We're now Estonian-based. But we're more than kind of a typical consultancy. We consider ourselves as a ecosystem support organization. So we run the biggest accelerators in Slovakia, focused on digital and green. So sustainability is one big accelerator. Another big sector that we're active in is healthcare. We run a joint program with one pharmaceutical company in 10 countries, and we also do initiatives and things that we believe are good for the ecosystem. So we just launched a platform called Innovate Slovakia, modeled after actually Startup Estonia, which is a website which we did together with the Slovak Alliance for Innovation Economy that concentrates all the information for not only for startups but for all ecosystem players with regards to funding, with regards to support they can receive and potential collaborations. We also, as a company and as an organization, are a local hub for several EIT kicks. So we're active in urban mobility, in climate, in raw materials, and other sectors. So in some ways, we have this role of a cluster, but let's say from the startup, more from a startup point of view. But our role is really to connect different types of stakeholders in different initiatives. But maybe a couple of observations regarding where we see that the state and the government can help, especially in emerging innovation ecosystems of Central and Eastern Europe. I mean, the title of this panel and of this event is Cooperation, Collaboration, and Co-creation, which is kind of a symbol of what an ecosystem should be. Ecosystem is a collaboration of all stakeholders to create kind of a bubble of life, so that everybody benefits from joint activities, and actually we should look at developed ecosystems and what the governments there have been doing to support the activity of all ecosystem players, and in every successful ecosystem, be it Denmark, Estonia, Israel, or the US. The government and the public sector played a huge role in making it successful, from basic research, applied research, but also from helping companies pilot and scale, grow internationally. So I want to maybe, unlike a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of startuppers, kind of appreciate the potentially beneficial and critical role of the government in creating a functioning ecosystem. I mean, at the core of the ecosystem is trust, right? So I think where there's trust, then there's a tendency to collaborate. When there's no trust, the tendency to collaborate in some parts of the ecosystem disappears. And I think this is what we're seeing in some countries of Central and Eastern Europe, that entrepreneurs and startuppers don't trust the government, don't trust governmental initiatives, and this creates kind of a barrier for potential initiatives. So what can be changed? Maybe three things that can be changed, and this does not only apply to Slovakia, but also to other countries. We are active in 18 countries of Central and Eastern Europe, and more or less, let's say, with the exception of Estonia or the Baltics, this more or less applies to, from Poland through Slovakia to Romania, Moldova, and we have a few projects also in the Balkans. So one thing is, the first thing is entrepreneurship. We really lack entrepreneurship education throughout I would say the education cycle. While we have some great examples of companies that are scaling and making it internationally, some great unicorns, not only from Estonia, but also from Romania, that have become kind of the gravitational force for the ecosystems. But if we don't start early in teaching kids and then students, university students, the skills of the 21st century, those are the entrepreneurial skills, creative thinking, teamwork, thinking out of the box. These are the skills that we call entrepreneurial. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to start their own startup. They can become, they can go to the public sector or the corporate, but we need to engage young people and helping them take action, helping them transform ideas into projects, and they can be commercial projects or non-commercial projects. But this activity we need to stimulate, and what we're seeing now is, let's say, not the most encouraging tendency in the region. So we need to hack education, not wait for big reforms, but really try to identify small initiatives that are working and try to scale them, both elementary schools, universities, and high schools. Also, the role of humanities. So not only focus on technical education, but humanities and liberal arts play a very, very important role in having kind of people that can be then employed in the job positions of the future. The second quick point is that what we're seeing in the region is a disconnect between big manufacturers or big corporations and employers and the startup and R&D sector. There's very little interaction, very little collaboration, and hence the economies are vulnerable. So what we need to do, and what the public and the government needs to do, is to stimulate the interactions between the corporates and startups and universities. It can be through a flagship initiative, sector-oriented flagship initiative. It can be, a series of small initiatives supporting pilots or proofs of concepts or interaction between startups and corporates. But this is kind of a big vulnerability of our national economies, but also local economies throughout the region. And the last point is fragmentation of competencies with regards to innovation that we're seeing in almost every country of this region. There are so many agencies, so many ministries, and so many politicians that want to have a say in how the innovation policy should be run, but it gets lost in the system. There is a huge fragmentation, and we need to start concentrating those competencies, ideally with the Prime Minister. And so there's a mandate, and it really is represented and spoken of as a priority for the entire nation, not as a side product or as an afterthought of everything we do in the ecosystem. So this is my 2 cents for the introduction.
Peter, thank you very much. I would just touch your last point, this fragmentation of the system. In Slovakia, we have been among the first countries, member states in Europe, which had received approval of the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And in the chapter 9, which is innovation-related chapter, there is precisely this addressing to decrease the fragmentation of the bodies which are governing innovation, research, innovations, and whatever it is, R&D and innovation. Honestly speaking, I do not believe we will ever reach this point that we will be able to make it more focused. But hopefully, and I'm crossing fingers, hope it will not last 15 years to get to the point, because we need to do it right now. Now, yes, I want to introduce now, why is Miriamka sitting here, my colleague from the past and now manager of the only one gold cluster in Slovakia, because we want to change the typical way of asking questions. There's usually one moderator, and you must be bored with seeing all the time speaking my person. So I would like to share this responsibility with Miriam, which is much nicer person to ask questions than me. So to make it, let's say, more vibrant, more let's say more soft. And Miriam, please, you can start.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. It's such a pleasure, to be honest. I was a little bit nervous at the beginning, but there are so many interesting things to hear. And to be honest, I was very touched what she said, because I think our situation is very much similar. Our cluster was established in 2007, and we have worked for a very long time without any financial support, even though it's the cluster which is gold, and the certificate was renewed for 3 times already. And another similarity is that Košice IT Valley is also on the opposite side of the capital, it's on the east part, and actually it takes 5 hours to get to Bratislava.
Far east.
Yeah, very far east. So also, you know, sometimes for us, we say that it's closer to go to Brussels than to go to Bratislava. But no, it is, I think Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency is doing a very good job regarding the cluster policy. And maybe from my perspective, I can say that because people usually what they are talking about are money and support schemes. But sometimes really what we need at the beginning are just changing the mindset and the narrative. I would say there are many politicians who don't know what the word cluster actually mean, right? So I think it's very important to try that we should like really speak up and to talk about the benefits of clustering. What is it? Why it is important to share the resources? And during the COVID, I think it's more important than ever before to share our resources, to share our know-how, because I don't really think now it's time to think and to be fragmented. Because I think there are like in my part of the country, there are actually like the businesses which are not going to survive, I'm sure. So we really have to put our heads together. And I would mention another problem, very typical for east part of Slovakia, and it's a brain drain. I know it's a problem to which many regions of Europe have to face, but in Košice it's quite huge because it prevents from developing jobs or companies with high added value, because it's very hard to find a qualified workforce. So I believe that digital transformation is also something what can bring these young people back to the regions. And we also, as a cluster, we are doing some initiatives. And I would like to ask Peter, because you have mentioned that there is missing innovation agency in your country. In our country, there is innovation agency. But maybe I would like to ask, like, Peter, how do you see what policies or steps or support schemes should state or represented by innovation agency be taking in tackling challenges for the European Union, such as digitalization and the Green Deal and skills?
Yes, thank you for the question. It was very interesting to hear. Before I answer the question, it was very interesting to hear these different experiences from the field, from the practitioners who are doing these things, because we are sitting in Brussels or others are sitting in the national government, and it's very important that we hear the personal struggles, the actual difficulties that are on the field. We are aware of many of these, but I think this also points to the need for intermediaries. So governments and Brussels, the European Commission, we need intermediaries. If we want to work with, especially with SMEs, that's the most important thing, to have an intermediaries, but also with other parts of an innovation ecosystem, with educational organizations, with business developers. We need intermediaries who know the local context, who speak the language of this actor, like Bianca was mentioning. You need to speak the language of the universities, of the researchers, of the companies, of the SMEs, of the business managers. So I think it's very important that we up in the ivory tower, we are not trying to connect directly to every single individual SMEs, but we are actually having intermediaries and innovation agencies, business support organizations, digital innovation hubs, clusters. They are all such intermediaries who are helping us to connect, to translate the messages, for example, about the need for digital transition, the need for the green transition, also to channel the knowledge and information about the opportunities for funding, the opportunities for networking, the opportunities for corporations. So these are the roles that intermediaries like innovation agencies can help us with. I believe that if we work with intermediaries, then both governments and the Commission would get a better result. So, in one hand, the information from us should go through the intermediaries towards the companies and the business sectors. But on the other hand, we need agencies to bring information from the companies towards us. So there should be this upward spiral of things as well. So that you are in direct contact with the companies, you know their problems, you know their difficulties, you know what kind of funding, what kind of networking they specifically need, so that it's not us who in an isolation are inventing our policies, but we are getting regular pragmatic information from the field, from the industry. So there has to be an upward as well as a downward spiral, a downward movement of information and collaboration.
Peter, thank you very much. You remember maybe from our discussion on the expert group that together with Bianca, we have been claiming that we need more support from European Commission towards national member states governments because they are simply do not understand the role of the ecosystem development, and in that ecosystem, whether it's startup ecosystem, whether it's cluster ecosystem, they are lacking the knowledge, sometimes even experience what that means and how it can be better implement and better put into the motion for the benefit of the country and for the benefit of the European Union. So my question to you would be, okay, how we can better utilize all those programs which are in place, whether it's Horizon Europe now, the new Horizon, whether it is Erasmus, whether it is Interact programs, whether it's, well, there are plenty of framework programs, whether there are plenty of funding, but if we are not able to convince the policy makers, those who are making decisions, then it will be not fully utilized in the countries which are in need to utilize it very well. Because I'm not speaking about Germany, I'm not speaking about France, I'm not speaking about Netherlands, because they know what they can get out of that. I'm speaking on behalf of Central Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, where we are missing this, well, how to say, ability to understand how to better utilize existing money and put them into the ecosystem development. What European Commission can do with that? Can you help us?
No, we see the problem. It's of course it's known in Brussels as well that Europe is not equal in every sense. We are trying to level the playing field, but of course in certain countries, not just in Central and Eastern Europe, but in southern countries, especially in certain regions of Southern Europe, there are difficulties in connecting to these funds. In making successful applications, in channeling the money to the right place. So this is where exactly innovation agencies or clusters can play a role, because they can translate these programs to a local language, not just the language like Romanian or Slovakian, but the way it is being understood by you. The way that is actually appealing and talking to the local to the local actors. So we need this transmission belt. We are having some programs, for consultancies to try to go down to Central and Eastern Europe countries, explain Horizon Europe, explain how various funding instruments are working. Maybe there should be more of these. There should be more consultation between the intermediaries and us. It's been happening. I know that it should start with convincing that why the green transition, why the digital transition is important. What are the benefits for you? This is not money for the sake of money, but because it's for a digital transition. Green transition is for survival, and you need to look out for funding, for support. And once there's this understanding established that it is crucial for the development of local companies, then it has to be explained, what are the opportunities, what are the specific possibilities. I'm also from Eastern Europe as well. I'm Hungarian, so I know the region. I know the problem of brain drain. I know the problem of education, of the fragmentation, not just of innovation institutions, but the fragmentation between universities, between companies, between research institutes and companies and universities. So in a way, connecting these actors together, it would be a crucial thing. And if you bring these actors together, if they are less fragmented, they will be more successful in applying for Horizon funding. They will be more successful in applying for any other funding or participating in European programs. So reducing fragmentation, explaining about rationale, about the need for green and digital transition, and bringing things down to the level of individual actors. I think these are the three things that we expect from our intermediaries.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Peter, how do you see the opinion of Peter? Maybe from your perspective, you have spent a lot of time actually abroad. You have experiences as an entrepreneur. You spend a lot of time with young people and startups. What do you think, what state should do right now? How should communicate the need for innovation and for this digital transition?
Yeah, so I mean, I would start with saying that it should be communicated often and from the highest level as a priority of the government, and not only that it's important, but why it's important for the economy, for people, for young people, so that they can get employed when they graduate, and focus not only about vocational education, so that we train people for specific jobs that already exist, but we train people for the future. So this is kind of one element of that, and it's not only it's not only about startups. Like, startups are probably not gonna save the economy. If car manufacturers decide to leave from Slovakia, they will not substitute them, but together the manufacturers, the big, let's say, OEMs or corporates, startups, and SMEs, this creates a resilient economy. And this, what we need to hear from our policymakers, how to create this resilient economy and why startups are an important part of this economy. This also has, I will touch on your point, brain drain and talent. I mean, if we are able to, create more UI paths or bolts or TransferWises in our region, this has a huge gravitational effect on talent of Estonians, Romanians coming back to our home countries that want to work for these big brands. So it has a lot of kind of secondary or even primary positive effects and benefits for the entire economy, and this is what we should try to communicate to also kind of big corporates, that startups are not their enemies. They can actually benefit directly and indirectly by drawing talent from around the world to the home countries.
Bianca, what do you think? Because I think startups, for me, should be a very vital part of the clusters, because they can bring new dynamics into the established companies with the new ideas, new approaches, but they are usually not so much present in the clusters. Well, what do you think about that? And the words of Peter as well?
Yeah, They are part of our cluster,
Sure.
and I must say that they have a really complex range of needs. I mean, each type of member has different needs and has different requests to the cluster management team. The startups are a really special case. We could, if we want, we can transform in a startup cluster or something, because they will take all our resources in order to grow. And even so, it is not enough what we are succeeding to do for them. And one of the main reasons they are part of our startup is that they have access to different mentors and more developed companies within our cluster. They work very close, and actually the CEOs and the leaders of the corporations member in our cluster, they are looking for fresh blood, and they are looking into new ideas, and they are keen to have different meetings, and they are taking part in different events. But just to give you an example from the last period, for this new program the European Innovation Council is putting into place, Romania had, I think, in the previous programs addressing the innovation within the startups, SME instrument, 1 or 2 beneficiaries. Really, it's a number I cannot pronounce, really. And even nowadays, looking at this huge opportunity for supporting the startups, they do not know how to read that information, how to access it. And we had our first event with the support of the Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization in order to pass us through the whole process and to bring members of the jury from Romania to speak Romanian language and to tell the potential applicants the road to access this opportunity. But I still think that in order to have high expertise in accessing these opportunities, the states should support clusters, innovation agency to bring and to keep this resource in order to help the startups or other stakeholders to access these opportunities. I know Civita is doing a great thing in this field. You are also involved in organizing different hackathons and challenges all over Europe. Since you are in Romania, also in Cluj, you have an office. I'm very familiar with your activity, but we need more expertise like that also within our own structures. Now there is this automatic artificial intelligence platform which is giving pre-assessment of the potential users of European Innovation Council resources. How many of you do you know it? I'm not, even myself, I'm not very familiar with it. I saw it once or twice, but it's a new tool brought by the European Commission in order to pre-assess the potential of a certain startup in accessing EIC funds. And I think that also what you said, that the money are not always the problem, but also the capacity and the scarcity of resources bring us into this situation of not being capable to benefit of all the resources.
We are coming back to the brain drain and all these things.
Yeah. Peter, do you think that Slovak startups discovered the potential of clustering?
I mean, it's. I think you were mentioning it, and Bianca as well, that entrepreneurs and startups specifically, I mean, they are busy with, starting the business. They are busy with surviving and busy with growing. So their KPIs are very pragmatic. So if your cluster can help them achieve their KPIs, they will join the cluster and be part of it. But typically, they don't have a person that will be just scouting for initiatives that they can become part of. So the key is messaging and communication that was actually mentioned by all of you. So if we can communicate the value that's and the benefits that the cluster is bringing to a startup, they will become part of a cluster. But for now, I think for most of the startups, they don't even think about becoming a member if it's not basically communicate to them directly how they will benefit from it. So I would say they're very picky, but there's a lot of potential for change, and I agree that they can bring a new dynamic to the whole organization.
Perfect. It's coming to the point which I want to share in my conclusion. Well, it's not sufficient even to listen from the bottom up of the needs of from the field, but we have to communicate it properly. But not only clusters towards startups, but clusters towards government, innovation agencies, listening to startups, listening to the clusters, and communicate, discuss, being empathic to the needs and trying to find the solutions. But before I will close the discussion, because we are, well, according to the time, we are plus minus running to the end, I would like to ask audience, which is whether physical or online, if you have some questions to our distinguished panelists. If yes, please raise your hand and you can ask question. If not, I will just summarize the discussion and we will go for 10 minutes break. Please. I don't see too much. Oh, perfect.
From BDIT Germany. I have two questions, or one question for the two of you who are gold certified cluster managers. What is the role of this certification process in order to get the environment, the ecosystem in a proper shape to evolve?
If I may start, for us, we've been in the second round of certification, and I must say that the second time was even tougher than the first time we got the gold label. And for us, first of all, it's a way to certify that we have procedures in place, to certify that we have evidences of our activities, and from a procedural and formal way of doing things, we are doing the right things. But for example, we are giving a lot of press releases and communication. For our policymakers, they don't even know what this gold label means. So we always, when we are saying that we are a gold label certified cluster, we are always explaining what does that mean. Also, for our member companies, to be really honest with you, for them, it's not compulsory to have this gold label certification. They are looking on what we are doing for them. And the fact that since 8 years ago, we had 13 companies, and now we are having more than 130 companies active, involved in our cluster. For us, that means more than the gold label thing, which brings us recognition at the EU level in international cooperation, because the other clusters do know what this gold label means. And actually, it's a proof that the cluster has been assessed, and they are not doing only by their years, their activity, but they are well established and they have implemented a lot of quality procedures. For our members is our daily activity, which convinced them to join us, to stay with us. Not the gold label certification, but we are very fond of it, because thus if you are speaking with a gold label, you are not checking too much of the background and the portfolio and things like that. It's already checked by the assessment of gold label.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just add that we went through this procedure the last year for the third time, and I asked the previous executive directors, and they told me it's harder and harder. So I don't know why, but to be honest, of course, like in the end of the day, your companies or your stakeholders, they don't ask if you are silver or bronze. You know, they don't ask. They care about the impact and the benefits you offer them, of course. But for us, and the very tangible result is that we are part of very prestigious group of clusters. And thanks to the gold label, we became a part of few Interreg projects. And of course, and there is no need to check it. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Any other question? If not, to keep the timing as it should be, I will try to summarize. Maybe it's not the perfect summarization, but allow me to summarize it. So, how innovation ecosystem should be or could be supported? First, listening to the needs of the stakeholders, or be empathic to the needs from the field. Better communicate benefits of cooperation, collaboration to policymakers, because collaboration and cooperation, it's part of the overall innovation ecosystem, whether it's startup ecosystem, cluster ecosystem, well, academic ecosystem, it doesn't matter. Better communicate of the benefits of cluster organization to startups. Reducing fragmentation, as Peter Saga supported this idea. And it should result in overall to better support of innovation ecosystems and their members or their stakeholders with under the umbrella of 3 words: collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Peter from Brussels. Thank you, Miriamka. Thank you, Bianca. And thank you, Peter from Bratislava, for your active involvement in the discussion. Thank you all which participated in the physical way and all who joined us online. And now 10 minutes break, please. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back to our 4th meeting of Slovak Innovation Energy Chairmanship in Taftie 2021. In the second part of our meeting, we will share with you some best practices which are related to the main title of this meeting: collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation. The first, which we'll be talking about that, is the chairman of the International Visigoth Fund, entity that is supporting many, really a lot of initiatives which are covering at least Visigoth 4 countries, but they are extending on in much wider area. So, sorry. Peter Mares, Executive Director of Innovation Visigoth Fund. I'm sorry, Ambassador Peter Mares, because this is a diplomatic function. We'll be talking. So, Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's not a diplomatic function, fortunately, which gives me a chance to speak completely openly.
Perfect.
If I were in my older shoes, you wouldn't get any information from me. And I'm here for sharing information. I'm not completely sure whether the International Visigoth Fund is really a best example or best practices, but I'm completely sure we are good practices.
I know you are really best practice because I have, at our agency, has a practical experience with one of the program, and we saw this cooperation and collaboration part there.
Well, we are doing our best. You can see how the prime ministers of 4 countries describe the Visigoth Fund. Actually, we are the only institution of the Visigoth 4. There is a patent institute, the Visigoth Patent Institute too, but as a permanent, long-standing institution, we are the only one. How I usually describe our institution is that we are a sort of human face of Visigoth 4. We were founded 21 years ago, and the aim of the institution in those times was to promote mutual understanding, toleration, and if possible, cooperation among 4, actually at the beginning, 3 countries. I believe it's still not the main goal, but one of the main tasks of the Visigoth 4. And in spite of the fact that it's an old one, it's directly connected to what we are talking about here today. Because what one of the panelists said in previous session, if there is no trust, there's no cooperation. And if we want to promote cooperation in any field among the V4 countries, we must create an atmosphere, an environment of mutual trust. And we all sitting here in this room know very well how many prejudices and stereotypes we used to have 30, 20 years ago. And unfortunately, I must say that recently we may witness some of them being reborn. So this, when we started with the Visigoth Fund, we believed that during the 10, 15 years, we would be able to get rid of these old stuff, heritage from the old regimes and communist despoties. No, it's a never-ending story and never-ending struggle, and we will continue with it. Nevertheless, where the focus is being moved a bit. At the beginning, we were focusing first of all on culture and education. And last years, and for sure for the future, we would like to focus more on innovation, research and development. And of course, education still will be our priority because it's directly connected to what these are some numbers of the past 20 years. We are not as rich as some other nation. We are not Ford, we are not Fulbright, but still I believe that more than 100 million euro invested into supporting mobility of people and ideas in our region is still a good result. So far, only less than 10% was allocated to innovation, R&D, and entrepreneurship. But now it's raising up, and it will for sure be more. Besides this 10%, well, it's difficult to identify exactly what's going into the support of. If it's for education, for instance, it's for the improving of governmental function in this field and so on. So it's for sure it's more. As you can see, we do not spend all our money on V4 countries only. We have two regions of our priority interest. The first one is Eastern Partnership countries, the 6 countries behind the neighbors of the European Union, and Western Balkans. And lately, it's first of all Western Balkans, which are somehow part of our activities, and it's almost 20% of our financing. We do not operate with money from our 4 governments only. We are in good cooperation with some other countries and governments outside V4, such as Sweden and the Netherlands, and even outside Europe, such as Japan, South Korea, and there are no representatives of the Embassy of China, Taiwan. This is the map.
Maybe they are listening.
Well, they may be. Well, we all have...
Be careful.
This is the map of our activities, of our projects and scholarships. If somebody is interested, it's an interactive map. You can find it on our website, and you can find out more details about the amount of money and actual projects. You can see that we do not cover V4 with the same intensity, and it's very typical for V4 cooperation. Poland is too big sometimes, and this is the result of for our programs aimed in supporting mobility of individuals. Visigoth Scholarship Mobility Program for students from the Visigoth countries, and for students from the Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership countries for to enabling them to come to V4 countries. By the way, it's one of problems of ours lately, because the lowest mobility supported by our scholarships is among V4 countries. Our students mostly apply for scholarships in other countries. They go to the UK, to the United States, to Canada, which is caused to a certain degree by the fact that there's a lack of information about opportunities to study inside. We've got a lot of applications for scholarships coming from Eastern Partnership countries for very specific reason. Most of them are coming from Azerbaijan. But well, as for the other Eastern Partnership and Western Balkans countries, it's more or less distributed equally. An interesting program is Visigoth Scholarship at Open Society Archives in Budapest. This is the only program which is eligible for students from every country in the world. It's a specific, it's of course focused on archives, actually somehow connected to Radio Free Europe and other institutions connected to it. But as we heard in the previous panel, and I fully agree with it, humanities and social sciences are not far from entrepreneurship and training and economics. So we hope it's worth of mentioning. Research grants at historical archives of the EU in Florence, that's quite understandable. And civil servant mobility program is the only exception from our general policy, which means we are supporting only non-governmental entities, both organizations and private persons. This is the only exception, and we support programs for civil servants from Western Balkans or Eastern Partnership countries. And it's, by the way, one of the most successful programs. This is more detail about our scholarship program. As you can read, we focus at this moment, it's for higher education institutions. But as for the future, we are thinking, and most probably we are going to do it, we will enlarge it down to the high school education. And I sincerely believe it's important not only for the aim of understanding and cooperation in this V4 territory, but also for preparing our people and people in areas of our interest for the future economy, for innovation and so on. Strategic grants. Actually, this is what should have been before. Funding opportunities, Visegrad Plus grants. Well, you can find details about it on our website. The projects eligible for the funding are projects which involve at least 3 entities from Visegrad countries and 1 or more from countries of the Eastern Partnership or Western Balkans. We have 3 application submission deadlines. It's the February, June, and October every year. And the projects must address at least one of the 7 priorities listed under the last ball. What do I do? Yes. Strategic grants are actually the same grants as the ones mentioned before, listed before. I must confess I do not understand completely why we have different categories, because you can receive the same money for strategic grant as for the normal grant. Nevertheless, these grants are for longer projects and for projects involving all 4 Visegrad countries.
This is a difference. Before was only 3 sufficient.
Yeah. So it makes it more different, but it does not entitle you for receiving more money. So, okay, we have it, and probably the idea originally was to promote the cooperation among all 4 countries, which is a good idea. These are examples of other programs we are dealing with at the moment. It's an example of our cooperation with Japan. By the way, very successful program. All the participants are evaluating it on a top level. And example of our new policy is V4 Startup Force as a sign of the future orientation of the fund. And these are examples of our projects directly connected to today's topic of your meeting. These are the successful projects, and you can at the same time have an idea about how much are the costs for particular programs. Innovation, technology transfer, and cooperation, first of all, because what we really strongly believe in is innovation through cooperation. This is, for instance, a project in which Slovaks are very active. It's one of those who are very close to the mind of Madam President in this country. Okay. So much. As I said, Visegrad Fund is not the richest one operating in the world, but what we are trying is to limit administration to the minimum. We are very flexible. If you compare what we ask from our applicants to the much bigger and richer institutions, you would find out that it's much more easy. We believe that actually at the beginning we started with coexistence in Visegrad, because this was, the last military conflicts in this area are not so far away or far behind. From coexistence, it was cooperation. And now our aim is what was today described as co-creation. And if we are able to reach this aim through cooperation to co-creation, we would consider our fund to be a real successful one.
Peter, thank you very much. And I just want to support your words. We have, as our agency, have been part of the program V for Innovators, which has been sending from each country several startups to Israel, 3-week program. And I was the person who was delegated to at the end of the program to hand over the certificates from the program to the participants. And it was amazing. I arrived day sooner, or day before the award ceremony, and I met with the whole team which participated on the corridor of the hotel that they have been accommodated. And it was amazing. You don't see the difference. Who is Hungarian, who is Polish, who is Slovak, who is Czech. They have been all together. They have been mixed up, and they have been talking, yes, common language. It's English, but it was important. They have been talking not about, well, how beautiful weather it is, or whether they are going to swim in Tel Aviv. They have been talking about their startups, about cooperation and collaboration for the future. That is the amazing result of the one joint program, because normally you would not find out the program where you can send startups from different countries. Usually it's bilateral. And this is unique opportunity to create much wider market for the startups. Together, Poland 40 million, Czech Republic 10 million, Hungary 10 million, and small Slovakia 5 million. Altogether, it's 65 million inhabitants. That is nearly as a Germany, and Germany is market for startups. So that's why it's important to have this kind of the entity, which is supporting more than just one country, but supporting wider area and wider group of entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, for the future benefit of the whole region and the Europe. Peter.
Thank you for the nice words. Another advantage, if I can promote my institution here, is that we are bottom-up based institution. It means we are not forcing anybody to do anything. We are waiting for them to come. And namely, as a good example is this project, which will be even better next time, because we were listening carefully what people were complaining about. And, you know, Czechs, Slovaks, Central Europeans generally, they always find some reason for complaining. So even with the successful program like this, we found some. So it will be better. It will be better focused, and this is what we are very proud of.
Okay, so thank you very much for taking part of this event. And well, we will move to another presentation. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
The next presentation, which has been recorded, will be from the institution which is, again, a little bit different than we are. We, as innovation agencies, we are really focusing on the programs for supporting entrepreneurs. They are Slovak Center of Scientific and Technical Information. It's an institution that is responsible for know-how and technology transfer from academia to entrepreneurs. And they have different roles within their institution, and one of the roles will be described by Mr. Ljubomir Kucka, European IP Helpdesk Ambassador.
European IP Helpdesk is a first-line intellectual property service providing free of charge support for European institutions, scientific organizations, R&D centers, and SMEs. Currently operating with 45 ambassadors from 27 European countries. One of them is Ljubomir Kucka, Slovak IP Helpdesk Ambassador from Slovak Center of Scientific and Technical Information.
The European IPR Helpdesk is a service supporting SMEs and research teams involved in cross-border business or cooperation or EU-funded research activities, manage, disseminate, and valorize their IP protection, offering a broad range of info material, helpline service for direct IP support, as well as on-site and online training, and created IP Ambassador network in every Euro member states, which helps the users such as SME, spin-off, academic sector, etc. The main goal of IP Ambassador are to raise awareness of industrial property and effective use of IP right in the form of training, seminar, conferences, professional IP consultation and advices, using patent information, using individual institutions in industrial property right in business or joint research. It's a very good question. First of all, I have to notice that IP Ambassador work in our Department of Transfer Technology Department. Our department, in the frame of our activities, implemented two international projects funded by European Union, National Infrastructure for Transfer of Technology and National Entrepreneur Center. In the frame of this project, our teams and IP Ambassador provide following the services: patent search services, prior art search services, and patent analysis. Second, trademark searches and design searches. And following support service such as evaluation, helps with drafting of patent or trademark application. In addition, we also provide consultation and services and seminar and training for the users. I have to notice that ratio between academic sector and private companies is 60-40%. Finally, I would like to point out that all services are free of charge for the users. During my experience, I have to constate that positive impact is in more levels. First of all, is raising awareness of IPR services and IP right from the users. Second, is the using patent system and trademark system. And third, it is grow up patent application and trademark application or national or international level. And finally, is repeatedly interest of our providing services. I can clear two examples of, for example, our company wants to file trademark, and first of all, we put advice on what is it IP right and advice to the company or national property or international property right and protection. At second, we also provide trademark searches, and the users on the result of trademark searches decide to put patent application on national or international level. And then the same procedure is in the field of patent information. First of all, is in consultation or advice, what is the IP right, what is suitable for this protection, and also following the patent search, prior research, and on the basis of the result, the company decided what do you want, they filed patent application on a European level or national level or international level. As I said, many ambassadors are working in PatLib Center, which cooperated with European Patent Organization. We are meeting on online discussions, conferences, or seminars, which is also provided by European Patent Office or European Enterprise Network at first, and our mutual exchange of experience are concentrated mainly on development of patent information service for our target groups.
Ďakujem. Sorry. I know that it's a Slovak organization, so I started in Slovak. Thank you very much for this presentation. And the final one today will be presentation of IT Valley cluster from Košice. Although Miriama is here, but she prepared the video, so we will run the video. And you will be able to talk with her in person in the afternoon, during the evening. So Miriamka, the floor is yours. Seems that we have...
Hello, my name is Miriama Hučková and I am an executive director of Košice IT Valley, and during following minutes I would like to introduce you our cluster, its activities, and especially one which is called Živé IT projekty. Košice IT Valley was established in 2007 in Košice, which is Slovakia's second largest city. And it was a joint initiative by universities, local IT companies, and regional authorities, city of Košice and the region of Košice. In 2015, our cluster was proven for Cluster Excellent and received Cluster Management Excellent Label Gold. The certificate was renewed in 2017 as well as in 2020. It was actually the first golden cluster in Central Europe. Košice IT Valley in this moment has 56 members, and the number is still growing. Košice IT Valley mission is to create a business-friendly environment by stimulating all forms of cooperation and innovation within the region of Eastern Slovakia. Our focus is also creating and bringing jobs with higher added value. Our cluster runs a variety of educational programs, curricula for university, shaping and educating IT communities such as UX designers, developers, women which are working in IT, or project managers. Košice is building its identity primarily through linking creativity and digital technologies. It's a great potential in positioning our city as a green city full of culture, great universities, high quality IT companies, and very interesting mixture of startups, IT companies, and traditional industries. As many other regions, also our region faces a huge problem regarding brain drain. We believe that digital transformation attracts talent, and young people can come back to our region and to build it up to a vibrant place for a living. Košice IT Valley it used to be marked as a success story of Eastern Slovakia. Why so? During 14 years of its existence, the number of IT employees has raised from 700 to 15,000 people working in IT, as well as the number of IT companies, of course, has raised in the region from 20 plus to 160. I would like to show you some pictures so you can see how much the city has changed thanks to IT companies which are present in the city. Here you can see its place called Kasovar. It's in the center of Košice, and it was in 2007 where less than 1,000 IT jobs were present in the city, and alumni from universities were leaving the city, and also residents were considering to leave. Average age of inhabitants was 38 years. After 10 years later, we have more than 10,000 IT jobs present. Residents are staying in the city, and the average age of inhabitants is 35 years. As there are many activities which Košice IT Valley plays a crucial role, I would like to tell you more about one specific project, which is called Live IT Projects. Live IT Projects started in 2015, and nowadays it's a large-scale project with 200 students and 50 teams. Regarding the topic of this Taftie meeting, cooperation, collaboration, and co-creation, we believe that these live IT projects are a wonderful example of cooperation between academia, IT companies, and the regional authorities. The outcome of the projects is functional software prototype, for example, mobile application, cloud application, or website. Students work in teams for 4 months on real IT projects, which are given by city and the region or product owners from the companies. It's a great opportunity for the city and for region to solve the problem. In other cases, the city wouldn't have much money to use or to spend. So thanks to these live IT projects, we brought a website for House of Seniors or a very concrete solution for museum, which I'm going to present now. The outcome of the 2018 live IT projects is application called Alone in the Museum, which helps a visually handicapped visitor. Students worked on this project for 4 months, and after finishing live IT projects, they continue to work on this solution together with the Museum of Košice, as well as the Union of Blind and Visually Impaired of Slovakia. This application called Alone in the Museum, it's a smart device placed in the Museum of Rodosto, and it's an application that identifies the location of the museum visitor and brings him information about the exhibition. This solution is still used in the museum after 3 years, and for example here we can see a visitor which is visually impaired to enjoy the presentation and to enjoy the presentation. Yeah. For us, it's a very nice example of working cooperation between academia, IT companies, and universities, and it's a kind of cooperation from which everybody can benefit. We believe it can be used as a great example for other stakeholders. Thank you very much for a wonderful opportunity to introduce you Košice IT Valley and our live IT projects. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Miriamka, for this presentation of IT Valley. At the beginning of our meeting, around 1:05, I expressed a desire or let's say hope that this afternoon will be productive and worth of your precious time. So let me now wrap up, and whether it was worth of your precious time, you will decide. You don't need to share it with me, but I would like to wrap up what we have been discussing. And I do it very quickly because I made summarization of the panel discussion already before. So from my point of view, cooperation is the only way how we could move forward as an institution, as a country, region, or EU to secure the bright future for our kids, dealing with the critical situation, whether it's COVID, whether it's climate change. Without cooperation, no way. So Taftie is the institution which has this in the mission. It's cooperation in sharing best practices, how to support innovation ecosystem, how to develop them, how to improve them, how to enhance them. And I hope that with the help of the speakers which have been participating during today's meetings, we were able to raise some points how it could be done better. And it's important that if we learn something, we will apply it. We will try to transfer the knowledge we gain today in our life, in our institution, in our countries. So thank you very much to all who were participating. Thank you for visiting us. Thank you for watching us. And see you in November 2021 on the last meeting of the Taftie 21 chairmanship by Slovak Innovation and Energy Agency. Good afternoon to everybody.